Chair now recognizes the gentleman from New Hampshire, Mr. Guinta.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Cordray, for being here. And
Sure.
I've been in and out of the hearing, but I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. I wanted to just read one component of prior testimony in 2012 at an open field hearing in Alabama relative to payday loans. That's not really the balance of what I want to talk about, but I think it's important to amplify some of the favorable stories because sometimes this is I think there's one side of the story that tends to be communicated. And I'll just read a portion of what a Mr. Tanji Thomas stated. He said, at this hearing, again in Alabama in 2012, I just wanted to say that I did have the use to a payday loan once before, and it was because of a family emergency. He went on to say, and the fees that I accrued from that payday loan were actually cheaper than getting a cash advance on my credit card, so it actually benefited me. And I was really glad that it was there, an option available for me. I would like to know that in the future, that if it would be there in the event that I needed it also. So his point was, I had multiple options. This is the option that I chose. It was cheaper for me in that emergent situation. So I would ask you to consider that testimony and others that I'm sure that are in that circumstance. In the State of New Hampshire, we have payday lending. We have what I would consider rather rigorous rules around it, and I think for the most part it works fairly well. Secondly, I wanted to get to, on the semiannual report of the CFPB, page 127, 8.1 is entitled Open Government, and it reads, a critical part of making financial markets work is ensuring transparency in those markets. The CFPB believes that it should hold itself to that same standard and strives to be a leader by being transparent with respect to its own activities. I agree with that statement. I think that that makes sense. So my first question would be relative to the concerns that my constituents have expressed about the cost associated with running the CFPB. Can you tell me in this book where you specifically identify the cost of building renovations that taxpayers have spent?
You talking about the most recent semiannual report?
Yes.
So I don't know that that would have been relevant to that period. I mean, the money was actually allocated for that purpose 2 fiscal years ago.
Okay.
But we have budget documents on our website, and we put them out every quarter. We have responded to numerous document requests and other things from this committee. Happy to get you whatever you want on any of that to make sure that that's clear to you.
Since I am returning after a couple of years away from this institution, would you be kind enough to remind me how much you've spent to date?
Spent to date on what?
On building renovations?
On building renovations? I believe we allocated approximately 120 maybe million. It's in that range. I'll get the specific numbers for you. This to cover actual construction costs estimated and contingencies that have to be held that may or may not be spent based on helping.
And you feel that that is somehow within part of the mission of the CFPB to help consumers, to spend that kind of money on a reno?
To have a reasonably decent place for our employees to work, absolutely.
120 million is a reasonably decent place?
It's GSA, who are the experts on this, tell us it comes in about $250 per square foot, which is well within the range of reasonableness for these kinds of projects.
There's been no other alternative that would be cheaper, that you would consider reasonable?
None that we have found, and I would say at this point we've bid out the construction contract. It's been awarded to a fair and competitive bid, and we're well down the road on this. I mean, the notion that we would abandon it now would be very wasteful.
If I found something that was cheaper moving forward, is that something you would consider?
What do you mean found something?
If I found something that was cheaper in Washington, D.C. that was suitable for CFPB, would you consider that alternatively?
Any input you want to give us, I'm happy to have. But at this point, we've already
consider the input?
Look, we've already entered into a construction contract.
Would you consider the input?
So the notion that we would abandon this project based on something that you tell me you've just found, that could be very wasteful of taxpayer money at this point.
The final question I have, and I understand that I have only a few seconds left. I spoke with Rick Wallace, President of the Piscataqua Savings Bank in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, $230 million bank. He is concerned with the cost associated with the rules that are associated under the $10 billion. He's at $230 million. He's being affected by these very rules. I would love to get a sense from you, maybe offline or in writing, what can be done to help that community bank, what I consider a community, one branch.
What's his name?
His name is Rick Wallace, President of Piscataqua Savings Bank.
I'll call him and talk to him.
$230 million bank, 50 employees, one location. He is hampered by the same rules that CFPB are instituting for
I'd like to know his
institutions over $10
specifics,
billion.
and I'll be glad to reach out and talk to him, and
Thank you.
I'll give your office a readout on what we find. Okay.
The time of the gentleman has expired.